have made it to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show that looks to inform, educate, and hopefully make you laugh. Stu and the Nunn is a show focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. Like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors are Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. All right, here we go. Still working on my new intros and music. Toby, I don't know if you noticed that. We got new intros, man. I was working on that, but I didn't have my music spun up right. So
you remember the Canadian, or sorry, let me rephrase that. Do you remember the hockey classic movie Mystery Alaska?
Yes. How can I mean, I used to live there. Of course I did. Yeah.
Yes.
It's hockey.
The New York Rangers go to play, like the little podunk town of Mystery, Alaska.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, they had Little Richard come out and sing the national anthem in that show to chill out the New York Rangers.
Right.
And I feel like that's what just happened. I felt like that was the longest intro I've ever endured. And we got, a New York City, guest on tonight. And I feel like we were just chilling them out. We're just like, hey, man, got no love for them Rangers, so we're going to chill you out by bringing in Little Richard to play the longest intro into our show that has ever been recorded.
All right. Well, I need to do some tweaks, but you know what? We're broadcasting the right sponsors now and everything. So it was a weekend of new intros and outros that I've been saying for 6 months that I was going to do. So at least we got those done. So I didn't realize I was listening there. I'm like, I know there's a sponsor thing coming up, and I kind of thought that's really going a long way. So I may have to do a little compression on that, but that's all right. That's one of a few. So the next few weeks, everyone, as you tune in, all new intros every week and some new outros. But anyways, how you doing, Toby?
I'm
You're a little choppy. I know that.
Another beautiful day in Central Texas.
Yeah. With bad internet. A little choppy. Man, too many people are at home. I mean, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight too. Too many people at home. Everyone, maybe that's going to start changing. It's watching the news. It sounds like maybe some things may start in a few places. Not here in the northern studio in upstate New York. I can tell you, we just got extended out until May 15th. Yesterday, our supreme socialist leader said that everyone should wear face masks if you can't social distance, but he's can't enforce it. So, it's not a policy. It's just a good idea if you don't have enforcement. So he's saying he can't make you do it, but if you can't be 6 feet, then you should wear a mask. And so it's kind of like being half pregnant. It's either a rule or it's not. But now today we're out to the 15th, and but as you can look at any numbers, New York's in a pretty bad shape. So it's not too surprising.
Yeah.
But anyways, the weather, this last weekend, Toby, it was 70 degrees here. I was out riding my bike. Today it snowed 4 times. Most of the time it was sunny when it snowed. So, my dog loves the snow. He was out there loving it. And it is a cool, brisk 33 degrees here in Western New York right now. So, we'll find out what it is on the other side of the state. We bring our guest on here in just a second because, he is probably experiencing some of the same wonderful New York weather. But anything you want to cover before we bring Chris on?
No, let's do it. I'm excited to talk to Chris. Before the show, we were talking, and I remember being at this thing up at NYU a couple of years ago, I guess 8 or 9 years ago, and you know, the guys I was with, they're like, "Hey, man, you gotta meet this guy. He was with the New York Strikers." And I was like, I remember giggling because, again, I was like, is that like a lacrosse team? But no, it was, one of the guys with the very first National Guard unit. And, as a striker guy, near the end of my career, it was, we went out and helped field, and train guys and do a bunch of stuff. And then, I also got to see, a little bit going in and out of Iraq around that same time that he was there. And I think that was like around, '09, '08, '09 time frame. So it's just kind of cool, like here we are, two just random dudes now, like, the world of media brings us together again.
That's right. And so, correction, cool.
Let's get out here.
It was Pennsylvania Strikers, the 56th Brigade, Bloody Bucket, but that's okay. Anyways, want to welcome Chris Capelluto. Is that how you say it, Chris? Capelluto?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Awesome.
Like, not a New York sounding name in any way.
Nope, not at all. Not the most Italian name ever.
I thought that was Southern Alabama. All right, my bad. Hey, well, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, so let's get right into it, man. Like, first and foremost, we got to let everyone know, like, we kind of alluded to it, but you're an 11 Bravo. So let's just get that out of the way, because 11 Bravo's slightly better than Charlie's. We come before the letter C in the alphabet.
I do control the tech. I can drop you in about a second.
Yeah. Like, my internet's going to drop me anyway. I just wanted, to let the record show that we got 2 Bravos and 1 Charlie on. So
they got rid of all the other designated, right? There used to be 11 hotels, right?
Hotel, Mike,
hotel.
Yeah.
So now it's just down to the 2 best ones, 11 Bravo and 11 Charlie.
And to clarify, for full transparency, Charlie, then Bravo, then Zulu. But that's, we won't split hairs.
Yeah. The Zulu does kind of does trump some stuff. But
yes, no, full pun intended. Different than a 69 Zulu, which is totally different. We'll cover that on another episode. What the MOS 69 Zulu is. But anyways.
I hadn't realized that you were in one of the original Stryker.
Yeah, I was. So the very first Stryker Brigade, which is the 3rd Stryker Brigade combat team in the 2nd Infantry Division, the first of the 23rd Infantry Tomahawks, Task Force Tomahawk. We put the Stryker from the factory to the field, and introduced it, to the delicious country of Iraq in 03 and 04, and then continued to rotate with that fine piece of machinery for quite some time.
Normally, when I tell people that I was in a Stryker unit, most other soldiers that have been around Strykers are in them. No love for them. They usually hate the vehicle for some reason. I loved it.
Really? They didn't. I thought everyone who was in a Stryker was in deep love with it. I never heard anything speak bad about it.
They have a lot of mechanical problems. Really? They have a lot of mechanical problems, I heard, but if they're used right, the way that they're intended to be used, then I think they're perfect for the job.
Yeah, that's not much different than the Bradley. When the Bradley first, I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but I remember when the Bradley first came out, it was, everyone thought it was the give all to everything, the silver bullet for the Army, and it was obviously modified and used in a lot of different ways. It was actually a very poorly designed vehicle, and there's a movie about that. But no, I mean, people I know like Toby that are Stryker folks are very, very proud, probably because you guys were, some of the first ones, right? And you were developing.
We were the
TTPs,
very first
right?
To field it,
right? But Strykers in general, right? TTPs, you're establishing policies and techniques and ways to use it, and ways to employ it.
We actually wrote the doctrine as leaders. Like, we sat down and so it was a really neat process to be in the ground floor of that, and it's definitely a big piece of the legacy. And so anytime I hear a guy was in a Stryker, I just get a little warm spot in my heart.
Yeah.
Not like 11 Charlie, where it's just like. It's a flatline part of my heart.
Yeah.
What about the 11 Charlie Stryker variant?
Oh, see, now if you were in my mortar section, like you are my people. Yeah, for sure.
Because you're calling on them people when your butt's in a sling, right?
Yeah, well, but they kind of like in the 11 Charlie world, I think, there was a little bit of hatred towards them because like they didn't have to hump no base plates,
yeah.
They just open up the back, basically make it a convertible.
Their hatches went open and they just started hanging around.
That's it.
Well, hey, so like we, of course we always want to talk about infantry stuff. Nothing makes us happier than talking about infantry stuff and, high angle hell and killing the enemy and, doing all the great things. We actually have you on today because you transitioned from shooting bad guys, with 5.56 and 7.62 to shooting good guys with cameras. And, like,
go ahead.
No, so like so Task and Purpose is a very popular military media outlet. Kind of new. It's been around a couple of years. And it's kind of grown in popularity. So why don't you tell everybody about your experience with Task and Purpose, what Task and Purpose is, your experience with it, and then we'll start talking about the quality of some of the videos and your sense of humor that have been coming out.
Yeah, I'd actually say the other way around. I started shooting people with cameras before going into the military.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, for a very long time. When I was in high school, we'd get assignments, and instead of doing a paper, I would go ahead and make a movie. And I never thought that would be something that someone would pay me to do. And then my first year of college, I went off to go to art school and to learn how to make films. And while I was there, one night I'm at a party, I'm having a couple of 40-ounce beers taped to my hands with duct tape.
Yes.
Right? And so I'm having a good time, and I grew up very conservative. Like my dad was all for the war in Iraq, and I was for the war in Iraq at the time. I mean, I'm not against it now, but I'm talking to these guys, these friends of mine at art school, and I'm saying that it comes up back then 10 years ago. And one of my friends pretty much called bullshit on me, and he's like, if you believe in this war, then why are you here drinking? Like, why aren't you out doing what's stopping you from joining the military? And it was one of those moments that like really pisses you off when someone tells you something that you know is true, but you don't really want to admit. And I couldn't sleep that night, and the whole night I'm like, yeah, he's absolutely going through a bunch of things in my head about, no, he's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I woke up, and the first thing I did was Google where Recruiter was near me, and
got him.
That's some peer pressure.
Yeah. Boom. The reason I went with 11 Bravo, I would love to say it was some I was brave. It was more like it was what I could. The basic training was short enough that I could do it in the summer and then go back to school. Although I ended up volunteering to go to Iraq as soon as I got out of boot camp. But yeah.
You were split up. Yeah.
No, I did OSET.
Okay, so you did it all, but you were did you enlist in the National Guard initially or active duty?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're making basic and AIT in the summertime and then come back to civilian life, once school came back in.
Yeah, I finished the whole 14, 13 week boot camp, got out, and then I thought I was going to go back to school, but I guess boot camp made me motivated, a motivated private out of me.
Moto. You got all moto.
I talked to the New York unit, and I was like, when are we going, guys? Like, when are we going to Iraq? And they're all like, are you crazy? Like, we were just there. You do not want to go there. I was 19 years old. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean we're not deploying again? They're like, thank God we're not deploying again. And they're like, but if you really, really want to go, we heard there's a Stryker unit out of Pennsylvania that's leaving in like 2 months. And so I got my commander to sign off on switching me to deploy with them.
That Kool-Aid was good.
Yeah. I was folding clothing back then. I was folding my clothing.
So did you were you an individual augmentee down to there, or did you transfer units from New York to Pennsylvania completely?
I guess the paperwork was strange. It was like they released me to go to the PA unit with the understanding that if I wanted to, I could go back to the New York unit after the deployment was over.
Right.
So I was basically a backfill. And back then, if you remember in 2008, there were like probably 20% of the unit was backfills, people that were just from stop lost or
Got a letter in the mail.
yeah, a lot of those, a lot of they were getting volunteers from other states as well because a lot of people were popping hot or just trying to find ways.
When those National Guard units actually had to start mustering,
popping hot.
Hey, when they had to start mustering and they actually had to go through a physical and go through that, those numbers weren't as strong as they'd been reporting in pure peacetime. It was like those ghost soldiers started falling out. They weren't showing up in formation. And, you started what they used to call it no-val, right? No value. Your no-val numbers went up. It's like, you got to start finding soldiers. That's why I'm sure Pennsylvania gladly took you. I'm sure they weren't. I'm sure they weren't getting too many from downstate New York wanting to run over there and go back again.
Not at the time.
Mm-mm. No, but all right. So you went over with them. I'm assuming you were probably like the FNG when you got there, the new guy, and you probably won their hearts over after a while once you kind of took a few scars and bruised up as a young 19-year-old eager beaver, fresh out of boot. And how'd you fit in with there? Did they become truly those brothers and you guys, went through hell and back and formed that bond?
Yeah, they were like a family to me. Like even after I got back from Iraq, I still stayed with the unit, and I would drive like 5. I'd get up at 3 in the morning to drive from Long Island to Westchester, Pennsylvania, just so that I could drill with the guys that I had been with.
Yeah.
I did that for like 2 years before finally transferring back. I was just like, a lot of guys had gotten out at that point, and I couldn't. Yeah, but I still am in touch with a bunch of them to this day. Some of the best people I know.
Yeah. Well,
did you do any filming when you guys were deployed?
Yeah, I shot as much as I could, and then I went ahead and dropped an entire hard drive of footage on the ground, and I lost probably like half of the stuff that I shot, but there wasn't really a lot of time for that anyway, and cameras weren't good enough back then. That now you have like the helmet cams, but yeah, it wasn't at that point yet.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned how you came back, and I can see that, right? All of us have been to combat. All of us have fought with great units, both active and reserve components. And it is that it doesn't surprise me that you stayed with them and you made that drive because it's that family that you build. And it also doesn't surprise me that you went a couple years. And like I say, that group, that team you went with is what it was all about. And then you guys were together still for a while. And as they started to get out, move on their merry way, it just wasn't that same feel, I'm sure, which you start questioning. Why am I getting up at 3:30 in the morning anymore? It's half the units changed out.
When did you guys get out?
So I retired with 22 years in 2009. And I did half active and a little over half guard. And then Toby, when did you get out? 07, 08?
No, like 10.
10? Yeah.
Like 9 or 10.
Yeah. So, but I deployed Desert Storm active, and then I went National Guard. I was in New York, so obviously once 9/11 happened, it was game on every time somebody flinched wrong, and then went over in 06, 07 to Afghanistan. Toby's got a couple Iraq tours, both active and guard. So we get it. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners get it too. I mean, it's all about that, the guy and or girls on your left and right. That's what makes it. And I know a lot of folks that come back and they want to, even my own team, right? We still talk about it. We hated it over there. We complained. All we want to do is get back. And as soon as you get back, if you're the same way, we were kind of like, we'd all go back if we could only go with each other, right? Nobody else. When all you want to do is get home. As soon as you get home, you want to go back, but only with that same team. But that's lost. You'll never have that again. Not the whole same group. People are going to change. So yeah. So you came back and you got back on the camera, right? And you went to NYU.
I Yeah, I went to NYU. I graduated from Tisch, the film program.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I interned at the Daily Show for a little bit, and then I worked there full time. Um,
Were you a
and
writer?
like
Were you a writer, or what were you doing there?
no, I was cutting apples for Jon Stewart. But yeah, and it was interesting to see kind of all these people. Like I grew up watching the Daily Show and yelling at the screen. Yeah, like really did not like Jon Stewart as a kid. And then when I got there and got hired, I couldn't have been more wrong. Like what a great person, does a tremendous amount of work for veterans. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen it, but the real deal, like doesn't even put it in the papers or anything. He just goes to Walter Reed and visits like every single soldier that gets wounded, pretty much, like tons of them. I have friends that he's visited, and even I learned, like, even though I disagree with everything that they say on the show, the people there are amazing, hardworking, and yeah, it was an incredible experience. Really good people.
Yeah,
Well,
Go
I
ahead,
mean, obviously they liked you. You went from internship to employee, and and that's one of the things a lot of people forget. There's like this weird sense, especially in the veteran community, like your moral standard cannot be, cannot flex in any way, which your character should not be flexible. Your standards and morality shouldn't be flexible. But people think, well, like if you worked on that show, well, you're this guy, or because the host has these beliefs, or the host is playing a character, because he's an entertainment. And I saw Jon Stewart when I was working with Soldiers Angels. I saw Jon Stewart at a Fisher House, and like he was engaging people. He was there, without fanfare. He kind of slipped in, slipped out, like a lot of people do. But made valuable memories and time for the people that were there. And then you see that guy on TV, and you're like, well, how's that guy say this? But he was there and knows that. And it's entertainment, man. Like you got these guys. Like that's like saying Tom Hanks could never play like a bad role. We have this persona, we have this idea of what we think people are, and if they don't fit into that, like it's like it's hard to believe. And when I say it's hard to believe, it's just like we don't allow ourselves to believe like people can be good people just because they have different views. And
well, look,
What's especially
go ahead, Chris.
interesting is you could, what if I agreed with him politically, but he was a bad person?
Right. Well,
like would that be more okay?
No, like that says a lot about your character.
Yeah. Well, you can see what he's done. You can see what he's done recently, right? He has went to town representing these first responders that are dying from the after effects of 9/11, right? That guy has practically stood on the desk of Congress, screaming at them to make sure those heroes that we all applauded in 2001 do everything they can to survive. I mean he's went up there doing it, and it's a great example. He has to be in front of cameras there. They're going to have cameras on him, but he's not doing it to plug anything, promote anything, or whatever. You can see he's passionate about it, and so I'm sure that was a good experience. But in all reality, you went to NYU, dude. I did a college tour there for my son. It didn't take me but 2 minutes to realize that probably was not going to be the school from him based on how our household is. So you were kind of, if you were brought up the way you said, you were kind of in the devil's den at probably NYU. So
yes, I had to very quickly adjust. I mean, it was a huge like culture shock coming basically straight from Iraq to like 6 months later or less being back at school and doing assignments. It's really weird. It's just a weird experience. Like I probably should have taken like more time off between switching from a deployment to straight to school, it's almost like a recipe for disaster. To
lot,
not
lot of
to
anger
try to
there.
switch that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that mindset switch that quickly. I when I so at NYU, I try to not make myself to be like that guy, the veteran guy. Uh, but it was also hard not to, because I had kind of built my identity around that at the time, and pretty much everyone was very against the military, against what was going on over there, and they have the right to feel that way. And I probably took it a little more personally than I should have. But since then, I think I've worked on getting that chip off my shoulder. And that's what I try to do with the videos that I do at Task and Purpose, really, is to try to bridge the gap between civilians and veterans and make content that, whether you're a civilian or not, you're gonna like, let's laugh about this. Let's laugh about the silly parts of the military, or let's learn something about a weapon or about history, a military history, and let's laugh while we do it. And that, to me, finding the humor, finding my sense of humor, my just not taking myself as seriously, it took a while, but yeah, that's kind of been my mission, my goal since then with video.
Now you actually have a pretty decent sense of humor. Like it's not bad. It's not bad.
Thank you.
Now what was that like? The onboarding to Task and Purpose. What was that like? Did you have in your mind this idea of what Task and Purpose was going to be? I mean, kind of like just by name, it rings this very serious, very straight line, regimented, non-flexible, military, persona, just in the name, just in the branding. But we've learned that, it's kind of very flexible. It's like you hired guys from all different walks of life and gals from all different walks of life. And they've gone out and recruited people, like they might have, got some folks from Ranger Up. They might have got some folks from other places, just to try and spice it up. And it's not bad. The content's pretty good. It's like if Paul Zandra and like Ward Carroll had a baby, it's like
Beyond coming on board there, I mean, like, it was a dream job to me, being able to make videos and also be in the military community again, because I hadn't realized how much I had missed that connection. I'd kind of, for maybe a few years, not like, I wasn't going to be at a veterans event, or I wasn't going to, it hadn't really been a part of my life anymore. I had thought that maybe it was a good idea to distance myself from it. And then I realized I had this huge opportunity to do two things that I love and that were a huge part of my life: video and the military. And Patrick Baker was the first person I met at Task and Purpose, and he's hilarious. And any sense of humor that I have in the videos is largely thanks to him. He kind of, when I came on board, like, showed me the ropes of, here's the way here's a good approach to making videos. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't just, if you're honest and genuine, that will reflect and people will respond to that. And so I have Patrick to thank for a lot of that. He's from Ranger Up originally. He's been doing military videos for years. Great guy. And Zach Hiskell, the CEO, who helped stand up MARSOC and fought in Fallujah, is just one of the greatest people to work for. I've learned a lot from working for him and Patrick and Paul Soldier, the editor in chief. They're all, it really has been, like, professionally, the best time of my life. Did I answer that?
Yeah, you sure did, man.
Yes.
But yeah, like the article side of it is more serious. A lot of the articles it's news, and I gravitate more to, me and Patrick and we gravitate more towards entertaining people while still trying to inform people. But I feel like there's a lot of news content out there, and the people that do that news content are very smart. They live in that world, and they're passionate about it, and they understand it very well. I didn't go to. I'm not much of an expert on anything except for trying to be entertaining, and I can take information that other people have and package that in an interesting way. So the news wasn't the alley that I wanted to go down with the content. So what I've done more of is like military history, and that I think people have been responding to it because of the positivity of it.
No, like it's kind of neat because when we look, and that's the beauty of like new age media, right? Because you can have entertainment, or you can have it be entertaining, and you can also have it be like super fact finding. And like you said, the articles, going down and like drumming it down and doing legit journalism. And then there's the, oh well, hey, like let's take this serious subject matter and make it light, or let's like, man, I'm trying to remember what video, what weapons you did, like this weapons video, and it was like actually not bad. I was like, oh well, that was like a fun take on it. You know, we don't have R. Lee Ermey anymore to like, spice up a good weapons video for us. Like, humanity's missing out on it, but like,
Malcall was great.
We have that, so it's and it's cool, because we had, a lot of different media outlets kind of come into play in the past, and sometimes you look at these different things, like the original one being military.com. Military.com went from being like this military community to being a recruiting tool for monster.com. And it really kind of took this path away from really the military. And then, you got the guys that started that, like Ward Carroll and stuff like that, they go over to We Are the Mighty, which is kind of the West Coast task and purpose. But to do a hybrid of journalism and entertainment is tough. It's a challenging thing to do. And it's pretty cool. You guys are doing it in a decent way. And, for the most part, it reflects in your numbers. It reflects in your followings and stuff like that. And you live in New York City and you're getting paid. So how cool is that?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. Our YouTube channel has grown in the last year from 900 subscribers to we're at 93,000, and we'll hit 100,000 by the end of the month. So it's exciting to see people interested in the military. It's not just veterans; we have civilians, and one of the comments I often see is that I am a civilian, but I thought this was funny, or I thought this was interesting. And you mentioned serious pieces, like Paul Solgi just recently broke that story of the Secretary of the Navy going and berating one of his commanders, going 8,000 miles to go do that. And that always impresses me, that there's the people where I work that are, the military community trusts them enough to let them know, like, hey, here's what's going on in our community. And
you walk a fine line, right? It's a fine line between serious, like, military channel and the duffel blog, right? So that's how I kind of look at it sometimes, right? I don't know if military channel's still on by Discover, but it's, you guys do have informative stuff like the weapon stuff, or you cover a lot of good history, and not always like way back history. You guys cover recent history, like events that have come up through the wars in the last 19 years. You will cover something there, or you'll go way back, and then at the same time you will put up something that is kind of funny, not necessarily the typical military dark humor, but something that can bring a laugh out of civilians, just like they can relate to it. It's not so acronym heavy or jargon heavy that they don't like. I don't even know what these guys are talking about. They can see the humor in it, and obviously we know, right, what makes things funny, what makes it humorous. There's a a string of realism and accuracy to it, and we can laugh at ourselves. So it is a fine line you walk to bring in people that are looking for both genres, right? Learn something about the military, or learn something about our history, not, and history could be within the last 15, 20 years, but also see interesting things, learn about weapons, learn about, vehicles that the military has or what they're doing and tactics, but not lose them in all the militaryese kind of jargon. And that's a pretty, I think that's probably why you've seen your numbers go up like that, because you're not just appealing to one genre of people. You guys have really a broad reach.
Yeah. When I picture in my head who I'm trying to talk to, it's usually the people on the fence. They're like, I don't know if I like guns or not, and then this is the video that might bring them into being interested in weapons and being interested in military history. Because there's a ton of people who are just like professional experts on weapons and on history, and I'm not really that. Like, I'm not a Dan Carlin. I can't go into extreme detail always, but what I can do is like a good summary to give you a good idea of like what the Stryker is.
There's also a lot more people that think they're experts. There's 1,000 more people that think they're experts on military or weapons that aren't, right? But that are your keyboard warrior experts that you're just like we run it. Anyone you run into has always been Special Forces, Navy SEAL, right? They've no matter what they've done, it's got to be all the way at the top, and they've got an opinion.
Yeah, those Marine soldiers.
Go.
I get them in the comments every day.
Yeah.
Do you guys pay attention to that? Or, I mean, you really got to kind of block some of that stuff out, right?
Oh, my God. When I first, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when I first started, it was like, it hit me hard. The things that people would say about me and my mother.
Yeah, like what she got to do with it?
Yeah, like it would. I guess I take things personally sometimes, and hearing 100 internet strangers tell me to go myself, it like hit me hard in the beginning, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to put my face out there and be like on camera on these videos. I don't know if I can handle it, because it takes, like, I have a thick skin, but I realized that thick skin is reserved mostly for like people I love, like my friends and family. If they say something, mean to me, I can take it and I love them more for it. But if I have hundreds of strangers from all around the world, and there's just as the way the mind works is weird, because I'll skim through like 40 comments that are like, I love this video, and I'll just block that out, and I'll see the one comment that's like, you're an asshole. Stop making videos. Yeah, so that was an adjustment at first. I've kind of gotten past that now.
Yeah, eventually you've got to.
You can't get lost in them in the comments, man, because like that's like this weird, this outrage culture, this trolling thing. These guys that, for whatever reason, they, their performance as a soldier or Marine or whatever they were, wasn't that good, or they don't like, and until China, like a gotcha moment that like I showed him, like, burn, as like my kids would say. It's really, you just can't get into that, because it's worthless and it means nothing, and and it's going to influence your behavior, because then you're going to, like, whether you want to or not, if you get lost in that stuff, you're going to start pandering to it, and you can't pander to it. You got to stay the course. You got to be true to yourself. You got to be true to your art. You got to be true to like the facts if you're reporting, because a lot of times people just don't like facts. Like whatever Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings or whatever. And like that's a very truthful statement. And people get lost in the minutia because their feelings and stuff. But speaking of facts and feelings, man, you're in the heart right now. I don't want to. I got corrected earlier. I said New York's like the American epicenter and of COVID-19, and I guess like that's actually not the right thing to say, but it's kind of like where things are cooking off. So what's it like for y'all? Like, you guys rely on public transportation. I'm in Central Texas. I'm in the beautiful. I'm right now broadcasting from the downtown Georgetown, Texas historic square. We don't have rush hour. We don't have like bustling sidewalks right now. So I'm gonna walk to the third parking spot away from my door to get in my truck, to not see anybody, to drive on a desolate road, to not see anybody, to go to my house to hang out with my kids that are totally healthy and working. So like, what's it like to be where you're at right now, doing and trying to process and work?
It's I've lived in New York City for better part of like 12 years now, and I've never seen it this way before. It's usually when there's a tragedy here, it's everybody comes together and everyone is on top of each other here, and that's kind of the way people like to live here. And so the nature of this virus has taken away like the one thing that New York City loves, which is being around other people. It's a weird. So when I go out, there's a weird sense of you can't come together over this problem. You're almost kind of fearful of each other. And now, yeah, the governor is starting tomorrow mandating masks. I actually, right before the show, I ran downstairs to grab a coffee, and normally I bring my mask with me, but I was like, oh, I'll just I forgot it. And for the first time, I had the people in the store tell me, like, don't come back without a mask. You have to tomorrow. You have to have a mask, something to cover your face. And it's weird. There's homeless people who are walking around purposely cough. Like, I had a guy cough on me and my girlfriend when we were walking down the street the other day, and he goes out of his way to go cough on us and say like, aha, got you.
Check that chin.
What's that?
Yeah, probably wanted to check that chin. Yeah, it's like,
yeah. Yo.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get his COVID on me.
Yeah.
And they got drones flying around in Manhattan telling people to social distance. It's crazy here in New York right now. Fortunately, I can work from home, so I throw up a green screen on the wall, and I put the camera, and I take over the whole living room. My girlfriend loves that, and it hasn't changed work so much for me, other than I miss being in the office with my coworkers. Working from home is nice, but yeah, and I don't.
If you don't make a video making fun of like someone, you got to do this. You got to make a video about the drone pilot getting an award. You got to get like some kind of drone pilot COVID-19. Like, you guys got to do a video, man.
Drones aren't for telling people to social distance.
You and Pat, you guys got to make a video of like
airstriking people that aren't 6 feet apart.
you got to get like the COVID-19 drone pilot badge.
It's like the guy on every patrol that's like 3 to 5 meters apart. Get your spacing.
Yeah, there's an overtired first sergeant, dude. I can say that because the overtired first sergeant out there, like you're in the chow line, like take a knee, 10 meters apart, take a knee, right? You just have a first sergeant yelling across the drone mic. Just you guys probably could. You could take some civilian drone coverage and mix that in with like wartime drone coverage. Like I see some people together, and then cut to some FLIR zone coverage with a missile coming in. Boom. Okay, they're separated.
You think they're coming up on a Al Qaeda target?
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Get apart from each other.
Yeah. Oh. And then you got to have like the AC-130 like talk, like the audio, like where the guy's like, oh, that was good.
AC-130 has a massive megaphone cannon.
This thing right now.
Yeah, we're just developing on the fly, but no, that's you're right. I mean, obviously, I'm in New York. I'm in the city quite a bit for work and personal time, and was there not too right. I was there the day before New Year's, and I'm used to seeing. I can imagine what it's like for you guys living there all the time, where you walk, you don't. We talked about this the other day on the show last week. You don't have a big apartment with a big chest freezer and store all this food. You got to go down to your corner market, every few days. And you depend that social interaction in New York City is just by virtue of how everyone lives on top of each other. You don't have the square footage to have a big this and a big yard and stuff. So to go out there and the footage I've seen, man, they show, the news is now constantly showing it of, Fifth Avenue or Park Avenue or, right there at 42nd, right there in Times Square of just desolate of people. I mean, even I've been in New York City at 3 or 4 in the morning, and there's more people than I've seen in some of this daytime footage, and that's it. It's 4 in the morning. That's without counting the trash trucks.
It's eerie.
Yeah, it's got to be. You got to feel like you're in some kind of Will Smith or some kind of other post-apocalyptic kind of Eli or something movie going on.
My favorite thing to do now is to tell first responders and people that are working, thank you for your service, and now they can feel that feeling that I got when people said thank you for your service to me.
And sadly, they probably haven't heard that. They haven't heard that. Sadly, they probably haven't heard that since probably 2002. Because being in New York right after 9/11, everyone was going out of their. They'd walk across the street to thank a NYPD cop and shake their hand. But that faded off by about late 2002, early 2003. So this is probably the first time they've had that happen.
And then it took a hard left turn, and people were starting to dislike emergency services. Right. So hopefully that turns back around.
Well, we just saw, right? We saw how long ago was it? I'm sorry, Toby, 3-4 months ago when they were throwing milk on cops and they were shooting cops and they were everyone's videoing a cop and they were throwing stuff at them and throwing stuff on their car.
Yeah.
That was 2 months ago
in New York City, right?
In New York City, 2-3 months ago that was happening. Now, like you're saying, people are thanking them, right? Sorry, Toby, go ahead, bud.
Do you see in your immediate community like people trying to organize like one of my well, it's not one of my favorite books. I think one of the best books ever written, Sebastian Junger's Tribe. He talks about the communal apartment complex that he's living in there in the city, and their attempt to do things communally for the good, for the greater good. Are you seeing that like in your building and stuff like that? Or are people like, hey, I'm going to have this taken to, the hospital. I'm going to have this taken to this clinic, or, this is going to the fire station for the paramedics. Are you seeing that? Like,
so that's kind of the weird thing about this virus is that it sort of makes that kind of interaction unlikely. Like New Yorkers are those type of people. They're the type of people that if someone falls in the street, they'll pick you up. I know everyone says that New Yorkers are assholes, but really they're the nicest people and they'll do exactly what you're talking about. But the weird thing about this virus is, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not out there volunteering, but there's a weird thing about when there's a crisis that has to do with nature that people get, I'm not talking about everyone, but some people turn on each other. When I was activated for Hurricane Sandy, it took 2 days of no gasoline in New York City for people to start basically rioting. I was guarding a gas point in Brooklyn, and there was a line for blocks, and people were coming up to me, cursing at me, calling me all kinds of names, and I'm in uniform. And I'm like, it's so quick that when there's this unseen enemy that, with 9/11, there was someone for us to all band against. But I feel like when something like this happens with nature, there's a ton of that. Zach, our CEO, went and volunteered to go help build a hospital in the Javits Center. And there's tons of selfless service happening. But at the same time, there's also this thing that it's invisible force keeping us apart.
No, you hit on a good point, right? There's a great book out there. I have a copy called 9 Meals to Anarchy, and it's actually an old saying from way back when, but they use Hurricane Sandy as a great example of that. Is it 9 meals? It takes 3 days without food or basic provisions and basic infrastructure comforts to turn a civilized society into cavemen, right? We all fall back to our basic instinct of survival. We have it, dogs have it, any animal has it, right? The whole concept of a cornered dog will do whatever it can to get out. You take a civilized, westernized, modern society like us, and we saw it in Sandy right up front. 9 days, and 9 meals is all it takes. 9 meals, and you are going to be in anarchy if they can't eat for 3 days. And you saw it in 2 over gas. But that's one of those basic provisions that we need to survive, right? We need energy, we need fuel, we need that kind of stuff. People will turn on each other. We talked about a couple weeks ago with our buddy Tim Kennedy on here. We were talking about how this is going to probably drive a lot of new mindsets and things that prior to this happening, our country was getting wrapped around the axle on, whether it was immigration or Second Amendment and things like that. And what changes we think this is going to have positive, probably some positive and some negative in some of these cultural arguments that this country's been having for years. I'd interested to see what your thoughts are. What do you see from your perspective, both military background and living where you're at in the heart of this in New York? What do you think this may do to our country as far as reestablishing what's really important or what the priorities may be?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that with the Second Amendment, because I'm in a place right now where I can't have any gun. And I have guns on Long Island. They're at my dad's, about an hour away. So if 3 days of no meals happen and someone kicks in the door, I'll be like, let me just go to Long Island real quick. I got my SKS there. So
gotta throw them hands.
Exactly. I feel like I'm not Tim Kennedy though, so I can't really throw my hands at all. But it's a good point. I feel like a lot of New Yorkers probably feel like how I feel, and they're thinking, why can't I protect myself? What would happen in a few days of this if there were riots? I can't protect my family just because I live in the limits of the city. It'll be interesting to see how this changes things. I've been watching the president's briefings every day, and I mean, I think people are starting to see that he's doing everything he can. I mean, yeah.
And then when you also have the governors, right? And we do have the 10th Amendment and states' rights, and we have the governors now that are, and it's what it should be, right? It's if the Constitution doesn't spell it out, it's on them. But you have governors taking all these extremes, right? We see the governor of Michigan yesterday being protested by thousands of people because some of her policies and stuff are considered. I mean,
100,000.
Cuomo could sit there and say I'm the worst governor ever, and I think she kind of said, "Here, hold my beer," because
he's like, "Oh, you got nipple rings? I got this.
I got this. I'm gonna ban everything. You can't even go fishing on the lake in your private boat, right? You can't even.
You can't even go to your own property,
right? Yeah,
like the Michigan thing is so interesting because that might be the step too far, right? The step too far is illegally telling people, and I get the thought behind the churches, the mosques, because it's the same with schools. It's the same with any kind of, gathering in density of people. But when you tell me I can't get in my vehicle with, my family, drive from my property to my property, because
nope, we lost you.
When I'm back.
You're back now. Yeah.
And I'm back from outer space. But if you tell me I can't go with my family in my vehicle from my property to my property, you've kind of gone too far. That's you're telling me I'm not allowed to check on or to go to my property. That's basically it's so close to the Third Amendment. It's so close. When you're telling me that I'm not allowed to utilize my property, even visit my property. I know that the Third Amendment is the billeting of soldiers, but the billeting of soldiers, the purpose of that was because the redcoats, we shall call them the redcoats, we're annexing people's property for their purpose, for their usage. And when you tell me I cannot utilize my property, and it's the government that's telling me, like, hey, that's a bit of an overreach.
So do you?
Like, that's not good. Like that is in no way me driving in my vehicle from point A to point B from my property to my property, where I don't even come in contact with any other human being other than the people in my vehicle, which is my family, which I'm allowed to be around. Like,
So Chris, do you think that's a tipping point for this country, or do you think it's time? I mean, is this a wake up call for the other governors that they may want to just think about overreaching, but balancing that with, what's going on in their state?
I'd heard about the protests and the lockdown, the insane lockdown. Do you know by chance, like, are they enforcing that, or how are they enforcing that? Are they locking people up? Summons? I heard in New York we're going to get a summons if we don't wear a mask.
Well, what's interesting, we can hit on New York. What's interesting,
we don't have a bail law. So.
Yeah, you don't have a bail law, right? So they can't arrest us, because if they do, they'll release us, but they can't even arrest us because you could get out on bail. So I don't think they are, because those thousands of people purposely went and gathered in mass around the Capitol, pretty much daring her to do something, right? They pretty much went out there and said and protested. They said hundreds of cars blocking all the streets going into the Capitol. They essentially put a barricade up with vehicles, and then went in there and said, pretty much called her out and said, arrest us, do something. And of course, nothing happened. Doesn't mean we got someone sneaking behind you.
We got a visitor.
This is a New York City apartment.
That's right. It's not a few thousand square feet.
There's a room and a half here.
Yeah. And but it's but New York, right? They can give a summons. But like I say, it's weird, right? Because the governor of New York is releasing rapists, including pedophile rapists, into Holiday Inns, and then at the same time releasing, letting people put into ask to be released, and all that, but then they want to arrest you if you gather. So it's very oxymoron to me. I'm not figuring out what you can do and not do to get arrested in here. But yeah. And now we got the face mask thing, and now everything's been blocked till the 15th of May, which is okay. That's not too bad. But I mean, there's some states, what is it, Virginia, that's going to June? They've already said like early mid-June.
I try to picture if I had lost my job at this point, and if I was hearing governors say things like it's going to go for another month or 2 months, I don't know how much longer the situation can be that way before there starts being real problems.
Yeah.
How many more press briefings, since you said you watch them? I do as well, because like that is the actual source of information, right? How many more briefings do you think are going to involve like the president roasting the media?
Did you see the other night? That was crazy. I haven't laughed that hard in a long time.
What was your favorite? My favorite was the guy saying he was asking for someone else, and he's like, "He's not here. Too bad." That was the best part.
I'm talking to the one where he played the clips back to the media.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was the most epic roast I think I don't think James Franco or any of the guys that do like the Comedy Central like roasts could hang with that, and it was like he like teed it up too. He was like, we put together something and roll the tape.
I'm not gonna come out as like one side or the other, but I'll say that was hilarious. And I mean, don't listen to me on politics. I don't know anything about it, but my personal belief or thoughts on it was that it was funny, and that if they're gonna treat him the way that they do, which I think is very unfair sometimes, like he's gonna do something like that, which is kind of also unfair.
And he didn't Photoshop anything. He just literally played their words back, and somehow that became propaganda. It was like it was their own words. It wasn't modified, voiceovers. It wasn't like a bad lip reading, right, or nothing like that. It wasn't, fake voice. It was them speaking, and a lot of the media turned into, they couldn't yell propaganda fast enough. It was like,
well, that was the funny thing. It's like the one immediate, like the very first question was like, man, I've never seen a video. I think it was the guy from ABC or something. He was like, I've never seen a video like that. That looked looked very much like a campaign video. And the president's like, no, that was clips of you. Like,
Yeah. So another thing that Ben Shapiro always says is that I like, one of the things he says that I like is that two things can be true at once. And it's that concept that, Trump might be doing some crazy stuff right now. That might be true. He might be doing some bad, crazy stuff, but that can be true. And it can also be true that the media is doing some bad, crazy stuff right now.
Absolutely.
And so that might be the case, which is that's a scary thought. And I can see where the media right now, they have this incentive game where they are incentivized by not necessarily the most ethical or moral incentives. Their purpose is to get clicks, right. And after only doing videos now publicly for like a year, I can see where it would be tempting to, it's not, you're not lying, but you're just presenting an outrageous version of the truth, and you get more clicks that way. And I have no idea what the answer to that problem is.
This need for an adversarial role, and I get it. Trump is a good character to have an adversarial role with, just due to his personality. But personality and policy are two different animals, and we're seeing it play out right now. Like, you can not like the guy, you can dislike his personality, his skin color, the way he does his hair, the way that he tweets things with moderate grammar. Like, there's a lot of things about it you cannot like, but then there's the reality of, is America doing a lot better through this than the models? Did his actions or his, call to action lead to us being in a better situation than if he did not? And, people have to take that in consideration. And I agree with you. I think the media have been unfair because there's this need to be adversarial. And, man, what happened to being objective? Like, one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's a very obscure film, and it's a journalistic film, and it's, I probably started watching it because it was got Marissa Tomei in it, but it's Welcome to Sarajevo, and it's about the press pool during the siege of Sarajevo, and it was just, the movie's based around the true account of these reporters that, were holed up in this hotel together trying to report on the siege of Sarajevo. And, there were two very defined sides. There was an Eastern Orthodox Christian, genocide. There was a anti-Christian genocide going on. You got these two ethnic cleansing tribes going at each other, and you could definitely take a side, but they didn't. And and I always think about that, and it's like, in the face of this adversity, they just told the facts, and they endured this experience against humanity and told the story. We can't do that anymore because it's like you have to be on a team.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to just like being kids?
Oh, we're losing you again.
I might be on Billy's team today, but I'm on Johnny's team, and you don't have to have this adversarial role where like you gotta spew almost hatred,
to get likes. Yeah,
towards the team that is relevant.
Yeah, I'm just glad you didn't say My Cousin Vinny. I thought you were going to say My Cousin Vinny when you said Melissa.
Ooh, I know, like.
But anyways, yeah,
she was all right in that movie too.
It's have you found, Chris? I know we've been wrapping about an hour here, but I want to ask you, and what we're just on this topic we're talking about. You talk about the hate earlier you're getting in comments, right? You're going to get from those keyboard warriors, but have you seen a push from one side or the other that people expect you to be in one camp or the other? Do you see or do they appreciate it and say, hey, glad you're you're not trying to get into the satire world for politics, you're not getting into politics, or one way or the other on that?
I'm gonna sound like a radical centrist here, which probably will bother people no matter what it will. But I've, I mean, I'm for you talk about teams. I'm for Team America. Like if
Let me spin up
when
that
Obama was
soundtrack real quick.
president, I was rooting for him.
Yeah.
Like I was. I wanted him to do well. When that financial crisis happened, I wanted him to get us through that. And I mean, I feel like he did.
Yeah.
Like the country didn't completely fall apart at a point where it sounded like people were saying it was a possibility. And it sounds like it might be a possibility again now. So I'm rooting for Trump to do the right thing. Um, there hasn't been a ton of comments just because the nature of the content that I do isn't political. There's not a ton of people. I mean, people will reach out to me sometimes and try to find out, where I stand politically, but I would never. Yeah, exactly.
So I had to do it. I had to get that in there.
Every night.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just had to get that in there.
Yeah. I think that when I was younger, it felt more like people looked at the country like, we're on the same team, and now it's more like, are you on the left team or the right team?
Yeah, red or blue, right? That's it. Yeah.
Where's the hope?
Yeah.
Like, where's the hope? I feel like I'm in a Black Eyed Peas video. Like, where is the love?
Yeah. No, it's but that's why I wasn't sure if people, again, you use your channel, your network Task and Purpose kind of has this military, obviously kind of, it has a very military kind of theme and focus, but people, a lot of people look at they look at we have these generalities, these stereotypes. Some of them are driven for a reason, right? Oh, if you're in the military, you're Republican, right? You're conservative. You love Trump. You love this. Or if you're or if you like the Daily Show, you must be a super left libtard, liberal, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. And it's and if you're a Democrat, you hate the military and that kind of stuff. And again, some of that may be driven for the reason. There's a reason there's stereotypes, right? But I just wondered if you guys kind of got that from, hate on one side or the other because you didn't live up to their image of what you should be.
People are always going to be upset one way or another. Task and Purpose publishes articles and we do videos that are on both sides. And so one day we might have people commenting on our Facebook page telling us that we're a bunch of shills for Trump, and then other days they'll be calling us libtards. So I think that's how you know you're doing something right.
You're equally hated.
There we go. Well, good, man. Hey, Chris, anything we didn't cover that you want to let our listeners and viewers know, or anything else you want to kind of just hit on? Anything coming up? Any projects you guys want us to keep an eye out for, or anything like that?
Just if you get a chance, check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to us at Task and Purpose on YouTube, and we got a bunch of great videos coming in a pipeline. That's about it.
Hey, great videos in the pipeline. I look forward to you and Patrick doing a little something about the drone pilot COVID award.
So we have your permission to steal that idea?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like,
but then when you do, you got to let us know so we can totally pimp that out. Be like,
some subliminal way, just like drop a hat tip, like, no, like
we don't want any royalties, want nothing. We just want to know, hey,
I love. I met him back in the day when he was working for and I remember when he applied to be the intern, the Ranger Up intern, make the video. I love it. I think it's a good idea. I think it's hilarious. I think it'd be well received.
Yeah, but awesome. Well, hey man, thank you so much Chris for coming on, giving us some of your Thursday night and filling us in, kind of getting our viewers and listeners, letting our people know what you're seeing on the front lines. We see what's on the news, but to talk to someone if they don't know anyone in New York City to kind of get a feel of what that's like, and then also just letting everyone know about what Task and Purpose does. Hopefully we get you some more followers and people just check something else to check out while I guess they're just sitting at home or whatever they're doing. Right, so awesome.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thank you, man. You have a good night, buddy.
Take care.
You too. Have a good one. Take care. All right, everybody. There we go. That was Cappy Army, and let me do my transition here. Oh, what happened to my video? Oh, Jesus, jeez Louise. Hold on.
What'd you do?
Dude, my video always stupid Skype crap. Anyways, Toby, go ahead. I'm gonna fix our video real quick because it just has like your head and that's it.
Oh well.
I need to
like Max Headroom type head.
Yeah, I literally have your chin up to your hat and
ooh,
and
that's the best part of me.
Is that the best part?
That's the most kissable part of me.
That's what he said.
Oh
Wait,
man,
what?
you're giving everyone you're doxing me right now, bro.
I'm not. No.
No, but hey, a couple of things. Since I can't do bald man rants anymore, because I've been blessed with flowing locks.
You can do pretty boy rants. I'll
pretty
let that go.
Pretty boy rants.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff is super interesting because there currently isn't a lot of legal precedent on some of the stuff, and now coming out of this, there's definitely going to be.
Yeah.
And some of what I thought was going to be, or what I had projected in my mind was going to be a really important election issue, policy issue, platform issue, that's changing.
Oh, yeah.
That is absolutely changing because people now are going to be very concerned about some of these basic civil liberties that
they're going to care about what's real. They're going to care about what really matters in our life, right? Our ability to have food on the shelves, to have basic necessities, to have a pay freaking check, right? To be safe and not sick. That's what people are going to care about. We've talked about this a lot of times before, that you and I, both individually, personally, and with other people, that, this country has lost its way. We saw it. This country was focused when we were under attack. This country is focused when real shit matters, and we focus on that stuff. But when it does, and then we start worrying about all the dumb stuff and all the stuff that the talking heads tell us, then we are more worried about, whatever the latest, greatest trade rags tell us to worry about. And we've said sometimes is what this country needs, as sad as it says, as it means, is sometimes it needs another, tragedy to happen on a national level that we see sometimes on the local level, whether it's tornadoes in Nashville or Mississippi or fires in California. That's when neighbors come together. That's when, we talked about the best and worst of people, because right now they're focused on what matters, right? And that's it. Not all that other crap. No one cares what your politics are, what bumper sticker, or what kind of car you drive. But to see that at a national level, obviously, is a horrific thing. We saw it with 9/11. We saw it with, I'm sure they saw it back in Pearl Harbor. But I mean, I don't think any of us ever thought we would see another national tragedy like a 9/11 again. And obviously to me, this is a bigger scale, not even just because of the number of deaths, but this is not even 9/11. I think it was I don't remember if it was you that mentioned it the other day. You kind of last week or week before, you corrected me and said, I compared it to that, and you said, nah, but that was kind of big for a couple places, but a lot of the country really wasn't touched by it. And this is touching everyone. And this is going to make people realize what matters is their surviving and their ability to provide for their family and nothing else.
Yeah. And this is what makes this situation dramatically different than a lot of other situations. And that is because people are able to evaluate their leadership at every single level. Their school, they can get a real good look at their school board leadership right now, because they're figuring out who cares about feeding the kids that don't have food. They're figuring out who cares whether or not people have internet access so that they can do remote learning, if that's even feasible in their community. They're seeing their school boards, they're seeing their municipalities, they're seeing their utility districts, whatever their local small governance level, they're seeing the impact it's having on that. Then they're seeing it on, here in Texas, we have a county level leadership, and my county is a great county. I'm in Williamson County, shout out, but we're not immune from controversy either.
Right.
We had, the county judge, which in the way things are done in Texas, the county judge is the person that actually kind of holds the authority over, for the county. And our county judge, made a little misstep and, put out a stay in place order and didn't adhere to it himself.
Didn't hear about
Like
that.
just like the mayor of Chicago, like made the stupid mistake of taking a picture with her hairdresser after she got her hair did, and put out an order saying people can't go get their haircuts. So people are seeing it all different levels. They're seeing it at a state level in terms of like state agencies. We roll out this unprecedented stimulus package, this assistance package, the payroll protection program, the SBA grants. We roll out the workforce, protection, and with the CARES Act. And now we're finding out that certain states' infrastructure do not have the ability to actually pay their unemployed. They don't actually have a means to track, and they don't have a means to effectively distribute funds. They're dealing in these old, antiquated, archaic systems that the infrastructure at a state level is like deficient. And we saw politicians when they started, really, rolling this out or even voting on it, saying, "Hey, wait, not all states are going to be able to do this. We're going to push it through, but understand, like, not everyone's going to be able to do that." So people are seeing their lowest level leadership politically to the highest level of leadership politically, try and work together. But then we also see in some situations, I'm going to use Michigan as an example. I think that Michigan's governor clearly is doing what she's doing to grandstand against the president of the United States.
Some say she's jockeying for that VP spot.
Yeah, I mean, she's a woman, so like she knows that Biden promised that a woman's going to get the spot. So that's definitely like possibly in the cards. It's a bold move on her part. Most people probably realize that Biden doesn't have the health ability, especially, I mean, he's clearly dealing with some form of dementia or mental deficiency. And, like he was having a hard time campaigning in the primaries. How's he possibly going to stand up campaigning, in the big show? So people are probably, if she gets elected, people immediately going to know, like, there's a good chance. It's been a long time since, we've been able to say, like, that president might not make the term due to health. And that's a reality.
Right.
Joe Biden clearly doesn't have all his faculties. I'm not saying that because I'm on a party or not a party.
No, it's pretty clear.
You can look at prominent, people on the left saying that they don't believe that he has the capacity, and he demonstrates it. When you can't remember basic things, you forget what day of the week or state you're in. Those are little gaffes. You can kind of say it's cool if you're a rock star and you're high and you forget where you're at on tour. You can't remember if you're in Cleveland or in Colorado. But this is the president of the United States. And if it's going to be her as the vice president, people are going to remember how she overreached. And people on her, like, Democrats have more than one piece of. Democrats like green grass. Like the whole, like, you can't, work in your yard. Like,
yeah,
I want you confined to your couch. Like, there's no scientific basis to any of that. Closing of certain parts of stores because you deem them non-essential. Well, people understand, like, that is a political statement. That's a political ploy. That's a political attack. And you're trying to deliberately crush a part of the economy. So in an already depressed situation, you are not allowing the store to have people able to go into the garden section. but there's hundreds of millions of dollars in inventory in garden sections that are perishable.
Yeah.
That Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, True Value, whichever company you want to choose, Ace, that have these what she just deemed non-essential areas, still have to have people coming in to keep that stuff alive.
Yeah.
So they're either going to take the hit and lose money on paying that salary, or they're going to take the hit and lose the money on losing that inventory.
Well, and it's when you think about that, I mean, it's a mass punishment, right? When you look at some of these states, and I haven't investigated every one of them, so I'll just pick New York, right? It stands out as one that is doing a lot of dumb stuff too. But I mean, a good friend of mine, he's a landscaper. He has his own landscape, has a number of trucks and all that stuff. He can lay mulch, but he can't cut grass. So granted, it's snowing now, but it was 70 the other day. He can't go out and cut grass. He's barred from doing that in the state of New York, but he can go put mulch down in your yard. Right. But that's about it. I mean, that's, he's employing young people, some that are not even in school anymore, some that are home from college and can't go to school. He employs, young people that are trying to make a few bucks. It's hard work, landscaping and yard work and that kind of stuff is not easy. And there's people that still want their yard. They may not be able to go get their hair cut, but they want their grass cut. And, they just want their stuff to be taken care of, and they're willing to pay for it in these times. But he's not allowed to go do it, right? It's things like that. It's like in Michigan, you can't go to your own property. You can't go out on a boat if I want to take my family out on my boat, it's my family. I'm not getting close to anyone else that I'm not already normally close to, right? It's not a big deal. The liquor stores and the grocery stores can keep you 6 feet apart. Guess what? The churches can too. The churches can put you and say, just like the president does at the press briefings, and there's like 2 empty seats between each reporter.
Yeah.
They have to cut the numbers back. Okay. Well, guess what? Not everyone's going to want to come to church anyway. Someone, especially now, everyone, if they have video and stuff. But people that do, you just put a thing in there. Say, hey, you can only sit here, that kind of, you got to give yourself a little bit of space. This isn't, you got Mississippi, they're giving tickets to people sitting in their cars with their families with the windows up, listening to the church broadcast on the radio in Greenville, Mississippi, and they're giving them $500 tickets. Common sense has to come back in a few people's heads around here.
Yeah, no, Rob, sent us something the other day. Shout out to our unpaid producer, Rob. Rob sent us something the other day here in Texas, and it's a place that I love to fish. Baffin Bay, it's down, south of Corpus Christi. It is, one of the best redfish and trout fishing locations in the world. It's phenomenal. It's this awesome little place, and it's just this huge bay that's relatively shallow and designed just. It's just a hotbed of the most delicious fish activity. And, they're closing boat ramps and they're closing the stuff. And, everybody there lives off of either, because it's a tourism spot, but it's also it's a fishing spot. People eat that fish on the regular, especially the locals. That's a mainstay of their diet.
You're shutting off the grocery store
closing,
at that point.
And they're closing boat ramps and they're finding people. And it's if you got two people on a boat, how is that violent? It's just the lack of common sense, and people are starting to push back. We saw it in Michigan. We saw in Raleigh, North Carolina, where they were like, hey, you can't protest this. And, I watched a great video from, downtown Raleigh, North Carolina yesterday, and it's people are starting to push back. Reach, and this isn't a party issue. This is a government issue. It's a civil liberties issue, and people are going to remember it, and people are seeing it at every single level. And so what we thought was going to be the important topics of this election cycle, they've dramatically changed. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be interesting to watch. But that's all I got. I know we've been trying to wrap for 25 minutes.
Yeah, we had to get our stuff in, our rants in. But yeah, hey, I want to thank for Chris for coming on. What a great guest, and of course Rob is always finding him. I want to thank all of our all of our listeners and viewers for tuning in on this Thursday night, putting up for a very long intro. I'll make sure I fix that for the next time, but I do have a new outro for you. Just a little heads up, little teaser. It's coming. But want to also, again, Toby, thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We had a few hundred viewers here at the start. It was going really well. Covered some good topics. Next week, we have our good friend, returning guest, Mitchell Taco, in quotes, Bell. Taco is a retired Marine aviator, flew C-130s and now flies for a great airline in our country. So we're going to talk to Taco about what he's got going on. Also owns some cool vehicles. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Lives in the great Republic of Texas himself.
Street legal vehicles.
Yeah, military style vehicles, and maybe we could get him to do it from like the vehicle, from the like inside the cupola.
That's what we need.
Yeah. So we got Taco on next Thursday. Be sure to tune in 8:00. Stu and the Nunn. You won't want to miss it. He is a man who is not short of opinion either, and can give us some perspective not only on what he's seeing and what he does. He does a lot of great stuff with the Medal of Honor Association, with Purple Heart Association, but also as an airline pilot, what it's doing to his industry and what this has done to that what people he knows that are probably affected by jobs and everything else. So we'll get some good perspective there from a military and from a current events thing. Toby, anything else before we close out, my friend?
No, that's it. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Veteran Outdoors, Pinup for Vets, Mighty Oaks Foundation, Warrior Media Solution, and of course, our newest sponsor, Kermode Outdoor Development Group. Thank you for all your support and everything you do to keep us on the airwaves and keeping us live.
There we go. Everyone, thank you so much. And I'll get our Commodity graphics up too. I didn't get that in either. Anyways, that's what you get when you pay for my kind of help, man. You don't get top dollar, but we're Bush League. Thank you for joining us. StuandtheNunn.com next Thursday, 8:00. Everyone have a good night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at StuandtheNunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Kermode Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.